This is John Bailey, the epic voice of Honest Trailers, and you're listening to the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. It's a Fangirls podcast with five-ish people. The tangents and squee will continue. Squee.
The tangents and squee continue all the way to episode 344 of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast, and I am the maze controller, and I have complete authority over this game. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. So glad you joined us. Let's start off like I do every week with the virtual table and see who joins us this week.
This is Chrissy in Salt Lake City.
This is Holly from Wisconsin.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I do know how I got here. I do remember how I got here.
Well, that's good. Because some of us...
Did you like my over-dramatic acting there? I figured I should just join in with the other over-dramatic acting.
Well, we're gonna get into it, folks. Today, this one. It's gonna get it with both barrels.
Halloween is this weekend, so we had to. But we'll get to that. First up,
we don't do slasher horror movies, so we have to do terrible acting.
Opposite.
Anyway, well let's do the news before.
Really, we only have one piece of news. It's 10 o'clock news, but the serendipity of this is eerie when you think about it.
Yeah.
Considering whose film we're going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about a Tom Hanks film. And it just so happens that his co-star from Bosom Buddies, Peter Scolari, has passed away at the age of 66.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was on Bosom Buddies. He was also on Newhart.
Yes.
Among other things. He'd been fighting cancer for the last couple of years. So, and then Bob Newhart made a statement. The article says he was a frequent golf partner with Bob Newhart. Apparently, that's why Bob Newhart is still kicking, playing golf.
All that fresh air and sunshine.
Yeah. But good old Bob said, I knew that Peter was sick, but his death still comes as a great shock. Newhart said in the statement, we were friends and colleagues for over 40 years. Julia, Duffy, and Peter as a vacuous? Vacuous? Okay. That's not a word I've ever used in my entire life. Good on you, Bob.
Highfalutin $50 words.
Yeah. I'm kidding. We're an essential part of the success of Newhart. In life, he was a fantastic person, and it was a joy to work together. He will be sorely missed, and his passing at 66 is much too early, which is very, very true.
Indeed.
Yep. So, but yeah, just the eerie serendipity there was just like, universe, hello? No, thank you.
Right.
So, but that's really it for the news, actually. So,
everybody's getting geared up for Halloween and the
holiday season.
Yeah, the holiday season and all that. So,
like, I know Doctor Who, they posted a short little clip earlier today. First episode, but I don't want to watch it.
Yeah,
I doubt it really spoils anything, but at this point it's like, no, I just saved Doctor Who for this weekend, actually. Yeah. And of course, Marvel is pushing Eternals, which comes out next week. End of next week.
Mm-hmm.
So. Woo, my. Hello. November, you're coming very quickly.
And apparently Dune is being very well received, which is exciting. I still haven't seen it, but we're going to make plans.
I've never seen any of it. I've never read the books. So
I read the books some time ago in grad school, and it's a good one. Like, there are people who are like, this is their big, entrance into sci-fi, and it is a really good book. And I've only read the first one, and there's like a slew of sequels and prequels and in-betweenquels. But yeah, it's kind of, Frank Herbert's kind of one of the granddaddies of sci-fi, and it is a good one. But yeah, it is very, very dense. You think Lord of the Rings is a dense book? Oh boy.
Yeah, I've got my copy of Dune sitting in front of me, and I'm on like chapter 3, and I don't know how many times I've kind of gone back to the appendix.
Yeah.
For the terminology of the Imperium, just like, okay, from the context, I think this is what it means. Am I right? Okay. Yes, sir. Way off mark.
Yeah. So, but no, I mean, as far as like world building and stuff, it is amazing. It's just reading the book is not for the faint of heart.
No.
But yeah, maybe at some point we'll have to review like the 80s movie with Kyle MacLachlan, which has its own charm.
Sting and Sir Patrick Stewart.
Yes, it has its charm, and it's like it tells a really great story for like the first half, and then like the second, then like the rest of the story is like, and we're gonna just gloss over it with this montage, all this really important stuff and character, because holy crap, we spent the first 2 hours just world building, which is important, but it's like it's like, oh, you were doing really well, and then it's just like, and we fast forward through all this other stuff. It's like, okay, guys.
Yeah.
So
from what I understand with this one, that they've kind of figured out, kind of like they did with Lord of the Rings, like it's multiple books. It should be built multiple movies.
Yeah. although this one, they split the first book into 2 movies, which I hope the fact they haven't even worked on the sequel yet is a little unsettling, but all signs point to it will get a sequel. It's just not, the problem is, like, did you guys keep everybody on contract? Did you all that the logistics of it, so we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, some have Marvel movie commitments, some have Star Wars.
That's the thing. It's just like, you could sign your actors to multiple movie contracts, but as far as the timing is concerned, because it's like, Zendaya is kind of a, she's becoming kind of a big star, and she started the MCU, so.
Oh, and also this one was delayed because of the
everything,
the thing that shall not be named. But so that's another issue. So we'll see. We'll see. I just hope this one didn't get screwed because of the thing.
Yeah.
But
hopefully not.
Anyway, but all accounts, it sounds like it's doing well, so that's good to know.
Cool.
Anyway,
all right. So moving on to feedback. Got some feedback from Shalane, of course. Number one feedback giver,
which we appreciate.
Yes. And she's of course talking about Monsters Inc. In Pixar, as we did last week. She says, did you girls know that the director of Monsters Inc. and other Pixar films, Pete Docter, is now the chairman of Pixar Animation Studios? I think I knew that and just forgot.
Yes,
somebody had to take over after Lasseter got the boot. So
yeah,
but yeah, it's Pete Docter's in there now.
Yep.
And
she says, she loves Monsters Inc. too. She loves Boo, aka Mary, even though we never officially got Boo's name, but everyone she says her name is Mary.
I feel like it's one of the creators said, that's her real name.
Yeah, I mean, that's also the name of the girl that did the voice too. So it may just been easier that way. for her to respond and just be like, Mary,
Look over here.
Yeah.
Peekaboo. Toys,
Th-
things,
yeah.
yay.
Yeah, and then we talked about the cast, both for Monsters Inc. and Monsters University, and now they have like Nathan Fillion, all these crazy people, really well known. Obviously we got Billy Crystal, John Goodman in Monsters Inc. But Pixar's got a lot of big names in most of their movies, like Tom Hanks. Hello. Owen Wilson.
Ka-chow.
Ka-chow. Amy Poehler, Tina Fey, Jamie Foxx, and Soul. So, and she says she has done the Monsters Inc. attraction at Disney World when she went, the Monsters Inc. laugh floor. And she says, yes, Luca is the most recent Pixar film, which I still need to watch.
Here.
Yeah, because it was supposed to be in theaters, ended up on Disney Plus. I think it ended up getting released the weekend I was on vacation, and it's just one of those where it's like put it on the list. I'll get to it eventually. Yeah, and then the next upcoming Pixar movie is called Turning Red, and it's going to be in theaters, hopefully.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
As
of this moment.
Yeah. Well, it seems like the studios are more like,
on Monday, October 25th at 8:31 Eastern Standard Time, it is still supposed to be in theaters.
Yeah, I think after the whole Scarlett Johansson thing, they're like, we better put these in theaters and theater exclusively. Because, we won't go down that rabbit hole, but that definitely is a thing.
Things happen, and there's stuff. And then that's it for Shalane's feedback. So thank you, Shalane.
Yes, thank you for the feedback.
Yes. So,
and
speaking of Tom Hanks.
Well,
we'll get to Tom Hanks here shortly.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a bit of a context history lesson here first. One, because context is important, and two, we're gonna get the depressing stuff out of the way first. So first up, heads up for our listeners that may be listening with little ones, riding around the car. From here on out, probably not the best for little ears. Not
necessarily because of the content we'll be quoting and talking about, but just because of the reaction from some of us.
Yeah.
Well, I was saying that more actually for the content, but there may be some based on our reactions.
I take no responsibility. Well, I should take responsibility for the words coming out of my mouth from here on out.
The real life stuff is pretty.
It is
intense,
and which
not cool.
The fact that they made a movie based on these things makes me even more livid. Because we'll get.
They took advantage. They took advantage of a very serious things. But in this case, one very specific thing. There were a lot of serious things happening during the early 80s. Which we'll touch on some of it, but mostly we're just going to touch on this one specific aspect. But it is a serious topic, and kind of makes me glad that I was not alive for the start of this, and would have been way too little to understand what the heck was going on anyway.
If you think
going into the 90s, though, I still remember some of the spillover for this, though.
If you think the media is exploitative and ghoulish, and take any tragedy, anything, you think that they are exploitative and clickbaity and all that now, this was probably where I don't want to say that this is where it's all started, but they've been doing this for years.
Oh yeah, they've been doing this for a long.
This ain't nothing new. But let's get into it before I punch somebody.
Yeah.
And there's nobody in this room, so it'd probably be me.
Yeah. Don't punch yourself.
She's channeling her inner Elliot Spencer. This could get dangerous.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay,
Anyway,
so
let's
let's turn on the
Anyway.
Wayback Machine here, folks.
Yeah.
So
By the way, we're reviewing Mazes and Monsters,
yes,
Mhm.
yeah,
but we'll
But
get
we're-
into the review in a moment.
yes.
Yep.
Okay, so turn the Wayback Machine a bit to the late 60s, early 70s, and I'm gonna try to stick with the facts, just the facts that we know. I'm gonna try not to let my personal opinions color this, but this is really frustrating. As someone who's a fan of a lot of these things that have come under scrutiny.
Yes.
So, but the late 60s, early 70s in the United States, the country was kind of going through a tumultuous time after the death of JFK, and having such a young president and landing on the moon and all these amazing things that were happening during the early to mid 60s, all this, the country was still kind of on a, positive upswing, until, in my opinion, probably the Vietnam War started to turn things the other direction. And us being involved in the Vietnam War caused a lot of strife in the United States.
Yeah.
It was a very, very polarizing event and caused a lot of discourse, for lack of a better term.
Polarizing discourse. I have no idea what that's like.
Yeah.
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 Gee, where have you heard this before?
Yeah, and in general, like as far as like media was concerned, we were starting to see a shift. Not so much in the 60s, but yeah, it as rock and roll as we know it, with like the British invasion and the Beatles and starting into the hippie culture and everything, and film. The early 60s, by then the Hays Code, the production code, was no longer a thing, but Hollywood was still struggling to get out of that mindset as far as their productions. By the time you get to the late 60s, early 70s, you see a big shift in what people were willing to put on film, both for better or for worse. Which, once we get to that on Gold Standard, that's going to be a really interesting discussion. Some of those early 70s movies. And of course, 1969, you have the Manson family murders of Sharon Tate, among other things. So, people are like, hippies and counterculture. Oh my God. Thankfully by the early 70s, for better or for worse, Richard Nixon does pull the United States out of the Vietnam War. It takes a couple years to do it, but we eventually do pull out of the Vietnam War just in time for Nixon to resign because of the Watergate scandal, which that's, again, going to be an interesting discussion when we get to that part in our Billy Joel lyrics. At the same time, in 1973, a little company called TSR was founded by a gentleman named Gary Gygax, along with some of his friends who were huge fans of war games, war strategy games, which we still see those now. Like if you go to Gen Con, you can always, in the one hall, there's always large, the big folding tables covered with like the like three-dimensional maps with like the rivers and the trees and all the thing, and you got your little armies and there, little cannons and stuff.
Think Risk, but on steroids.
Yes, exactly.
Those were really big in like the 50s and the 60s, and actually in some places were legitimately used as training exercises for people in the military. So those were actually fairly common. But Gary Gygax and his friends wanted to be more inventive, because you can only do so much when you're playing the Napoleonic Wars.
Right.
It's like you're either Napoleon or the other side.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
you know,
and especially like historical ones, you're kind of like, well, history. These are the facts. I mean, you can kind of play fast and loose with some of the details because that's where we get historical fiction. But for the setting and things, you're kind of this is
when
what
you're playing
you have
a
to work with.
game, it can make things a little monotonous and not nearly as fun. So they're like, they were like, we can make this way more fun. Yeah, like we want to change things up, have expand so that we have more opportunities to be more creative. So they started including things like wizards and more fantastical
and elves and
type things.
Different kinds of magic.
Yeah, so that eventually turned into Dungeons and Dragons, which they realized that they were onto something, but could not find anybody to publish their materials for them. So they ended up founding TSR in 1973 to self-publish, and they did fairly well, all things considering, considering they were self-publishing and building everything.
And again,
and they'd sell several thousand at the start, which is not bad.
And remember,
having to do everything by hand.
Pre-internet, they didn't have Kickstarter, they didn't have any of the things that game developers have.
They were just
now.
a couple of guys in Lake Geneva, just hanging out.
And they're like, hey, let's market this and sell it, and don't quit your day job just yet, but this could go somewhere. Let's see.
Yeah. So, they were developing a little bit of a following, decent enough that they were selling copies, and they were like, okay, this is cool. So let's roll with this. So, words slowly getting out, people are starting to play, create clubs, getting together as a friendly local game shop or hobby shop. Really, I think there were more hobby shops back then than game shops like now.
Yeah, they didn't have a gaming culture as we know it, so there wouldn't have been game stores. But yeah, hobby shops were definitely a big thing back in the day. So that's kind of where it started.
So Gary Gygax and his pals, Tim Kask, all those other guys, are busy hand cranking out copies of D&D, first edition. Over on the Nixon has resigned, we've pulled out of Vietnam, but there's still turmoil politically and socially and stuff, and there is the two things that on the surface, if you didn't know, had a connection. It's not a direct connection, but have a connection to each other. You would be like, okay, those are just two things that happen in the same year. But as we get into this, you'll see that in a weird, twisted kind of way that they are connected. So in 1979, Jerry Falwell Sr. founds the Moral Majority, which was and still is a right-wing political, whatever you want to call it.
It's
not a pack, but it's kind of like a pack.
Yeah, it was kind of more like
they were like a what's the word I'm looking for?
It was kind of like a group that's like, okay, I mean, they wanted
lobbyists.
Yeah, and they were like trying to be like, okay, all these there are certain things that are happening in the culture that we kind of want to say in what's going on, and it started out like, okay, we want to kind of have a voice, have a way to sort of guide the younger generation, what's going on, and then it just went crazy, like stupid crazy.
Yeah.
And I mean, because
the Moral Majority among they were one of the bit like they're lobbyists, they're an action group, they're and they were a big part of the reason why Ronald Reagan ended up getting elected 2 years later.
I mean, and there's still stuff like that. It doesn't matter what political party or where you swing politically. There are groups like this all over the place.
Yeah, there's always going to be one or two groups that just can have the biggest bullhorn. You're screaming the loudest, going, "Hey, pay attention to us!"
Right now it's lunatics on Twitter.
Yeah. But also in 1979, a college student at Michigan State, right?
I think so.
I was in Michigan.
Yeah.
I always get Michigan State and University of Michigan. Like, which one's which?
Better not say that out loud. Michigan people get really cranky about that.
Oh, yes. Trust a fellow Wisconsinite who's accidentally made that mistake. Yeah. Not pretty.
Yeah, I know. No, it was Michigan State. It was Michigan State University. So yay, I got that right.
Don't kill her, people.
Yay, go. Whatever their mascot is. I know they're not the Wolverines. They're the other ones. Spartans, I think.
Spartans, yeah. I just remember they're green.
Yes. Anyway, so this Michigan State University student named James Dallas Egbert III, who we're just going to call Dallas from here on out, because that is a mouthful. But Dallas disappears from campus with seemingly no trace of him. Which, a college student disappearing, even back in the late 70s, I don't know if that necessarily would have been headline news per se, because college students, it's their first time away from home more than likely, so they're testing the world and all those things. But
I mean, it
Dallas
garnered notice, but maybe not national headlines.
Right. Dallas, on the other hand, was notable for a couple of reasons. First of all, he was 16.
Mm-hmm.
And
at college.
A college student. He graduated high school at 14. He was this uber genius. Ridiculously smart. So graduated high school really early, got into college. So that made him kind of stand out a little, enough as it is. So when he goes missing, his parents, obviously are concerned. So they end up calling a private investigator named William Deere, who was a PI in Texas, but he happened to be friends with Dallas's uncle. He got in contact with Mr. Deere, who in turn got in contact with Dallas's parents, and they explained, he's been missing. He was last seen on August 15th. It's now August 22nd, so it's been a whole week. Usually, I think in general, somebody has to be missing for 24 hours or something like that for it to be, a concern for the police. I don't know if that's the case. That's the way they portray it on TV. So everything. Both of my parents were cops, but I know nothing about the police force because my dad was a traffic cop. So I can tell you all about writing people tickets, but that's about it. So anyway,
they have to be missing for
a certain amount of time.
Yeah, I think it depends on your state, but it's 24 to 48 hours before they'll start looking.
Yeah,
I think.
So
don't quote me on that. But
yeah. So Mr. Deere, flies off to Michigan State University in his private jet, BTW. Yeah, you have to know this about Texas private investigator Mr. William C. Deere. This guy was BPI, was really, really successful, at least, monetarily enough, successful enough for people to pay him for him to have his own jet. So flies off to Michigan to, start his investigation, and I'm sure does a lot of the things you would expect, talk to professors, I don't know if he had a roommate or not, but, probably talk to other people that lived on the same floor or in the same hallway as him, in the dorms, that sort of thing. But one thing that Mr. Deere, zeroed in on really quickly and really just kind of sparked his interest in something that he thought would be possibly relevant to Dallas's disappearance, was the fact that Dallas was an avid player of Dungeons and Dragons.
Uh-huh.
And supposedly he played with some other students on campus. They'd been seen running around the steam tunnels underneath the buildings. When we hear the term steam tunnel, that sounds like, something like, running around in like a Freddy Krueger movie, just like, steam constantly billowing out of like pipes so you can't see where you're going and everything. No, they were just like utility
dungeon.
Yeah, it's the ventilation system.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
well, it's like the utilidors underneath the Magic Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not nearly anything like out of a horror film. They're just concrete corridors that the steam pipes that help heat the buildings, because this campus is super old, run.
It's like the college I went to, what the business building, which isn't there anymore, but when I was there, they had a sign up there that said, this building has a fallout shelter, and it has the radiation symbol and all that stuff. I don't know if anyone went down there to play, could go LARPing down there or anything, but I kind of wouldn't put it past anybody to do that.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, in theory, it sounds like it could be really fun, but when you actually like see images of what these steam tunnels look like, you're like, oh, that's not nearly as exciting as what you could.
There's like probably spiders and stuff down there. And
I mean, I'm sure there probably is, but it's not like you're being chased by like the Predator or something,
Yeah, there's no alligators or anything down there.
No, especially not in Michigan.
Well,
no. It was Florida, maybe.
Yeah, that is possible.
Florida, definitely. Although they don't have underground stuff in Florida, so
that's just called the swamp.
Yeah,
you're underground. Florida.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So for whatever reason, Deere just honed in on this Dungeons and Dragons thing. He didn't even know what it was. The thing. And so he had to do the research. He had to end up talking to some other players. He ended up paying this kid to let him come and like play a game, and apparently he was very disappointed when he played like we played for the last year, where they sat around a table with dice and pieces of paper and pencils. He was very disappointed that it wasn't more nefarious looking.
He was hoping that they were like gonna draw a pentagram on the ground and
put on dark robes and
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
My gosh, this guy.
Yeah.
Oh,
wow. So, but even without his experience playing D&D being as sensational as he had it was in his head, he still went with it. He was convinced that Dallas had been playing D&D, had a psychological break, suddenly couldn't tell fantasy from reality, and took off into these steam tunnels and was dead somewhere underneath the ground of Michigan State University. Granted, they searched all the steam tunnels and didn't find anything. But he was still convinced.
Okay, just kind of from the sound of it, and knowing how D&D actually works and how D&D players actually are, I'm just kind of like, are you sure that the PI wasn't the wasn't the one with the psychological episode.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, seriously?
Yeah, who's the one that who's out of touch with reality here?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, I put a link to it in the show notes. Just as an aside, it's a review from a YouTuber. I don't know if people have heard of him. His name is Spoonie. He's not quite as active as he used to be, but years and years ago, he was kind of the reviewer of D&D and pop culture sorts of things on the internet. And he did a review of Mazes and Monsters, and he actually talked about, it's like, really, like, the guys I play D&D with, they're nerds. It's like, what do you expect?
Yeah.
And it's just sort of, yeah. So
yeah.
He,
one of the videos
Mm-hmm.
that I watched on YouTube, like the top comment in the comments was from some person who's like, yeah, when I started playing D&D back in the day with my friends, a friend of my mom was like, aren't you concerned about these boys harming themselves or getting into something they shouldn't? And apparently this guy's mom was like, the only thing that they're gonna encounter is not being able to get a date.
pretty much. I mean, back in the day, you talk to guys, you talk to people who've been, it's mostly guys, let's be honest here.
Yes.
There were some ladies who did, but not as many, but not as many as there are now. It was the nerdy, geeky guys who just, didn't, this was their thing, and this is what, there was a time, and bless them for it, they were bullied and picked on and didn't get the dates, and they didn't, and they didn't have a social life, but they loved imagination, they loved to play, they loved to game. And nowadays, those kind of guys, they're the ones that are writing sci-fi and fantasy and making bank doing so.
Yes.
And it's like what, why is this a problem? I mean, to us it sounds ludicrous, and even back then it was ridiculous. Like you said, the commenter you talked about, it's like the only thing they're in danger of is not getting a date. And maybe
or numerous paper cuts flipping through the maps that they were.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they'll get an atomic
breaking your
wedgie
pencil and not having a way to sharpen it.
Yeah. I mean, maybe at school they'll get, the bully jock or whoever will give them an atomic wedgie.
Yeah.
Just for because, like, you geek.
Yeah.
You're playing that stupid geeky game. Herp derp. But yeah, it's like, really, guys. I mean, yeah. So anyway, so this kid, this college kid, he disappears.
Yes, and the Mr. Deer, apparently, even after all of this ends in the way it concludes, and we'll get to that. Apparently, this guy is really known for loving the media and being essentially an attention whore from the media. So as soon as he gets like this little, he's like a dog, but he's like one of those tiny little dogs that's gotten himself a big old bone and just does not want to let go of it. You've all seen it, like the little chihuahua. It's got a bone that's way too big for it. It's way in over its head, but it's got it, so it's not going to let it go. This is the way this private investigator was. So immediately he starts talking to the media, and of course, thanks to the other things going on, they take off with it, and it spreads like wildfire.
Yeah, this is what we call, in the 80s especially, the Satanic Panic, and this is where this is the roots of later video games are violent, and it's going to cause us all to be serial killers. Metal music is violent. It's going to cause us all to be serial killers.
Yeah, this was one aspect of the Satanic Panic. Yeah, there's bigger parts of the Satanic Panic that are not relevant to this that we're not going to get into. I will have among the other 5,000 links that will be in the show notes. There are several that are not just specific to the Dallas case, but just the Satanic Panic as a whole, but also covers this as part of it. So if you want to go down that rabbit hole and find out more about the Satanic Panic as a whole, just again, it's dark. Like this this gets dark, but the major part of the Satanic Panic that really took over like the headlines, most of the headlines, and was covered for like years and years and years. It is at the same time so mind-boggling that people would believe this crap.
Well,
I mean, second of all, that people's lives were destroyed because of some of this stuff. Like there's a whole thing with like this poor these people who had a daycare in California that one guy ended up in jail for like 4 years before he ever even got tried. He was just, he wasn't allowed to be put on a bail because he was considered a threat to society because they were supposedly doing like satanic sacrifices with these kids at these daycare and like flying them to Mexico to have them pumped full of drugs. Like how is that even possible? Your kid's at daycare for like 4 hours. And these people supposedly had time to like fly their kids to Mexico, pump them full of drugs, and then send them back, bring them back in time for their parents to pick them up. Like logically, just it does not make sense. Yeah. It is so freaking frustrating and so disgusting at the same time. The things that people would believe.
Yeah, well, and it's talking to people like Jared. He plays D&D with a group of guys that some of them have been playing since before he was born, which would have been around this time in the 80s. And I I've talked to writer buddies of Jared's. I've talked to other people, and they're just like, yeah, it was so ridiculous. And I mean, in a and I'm from Utah. We have a very heavily religious culture here, but even then it's like I mean people are like shocked that there are so many LDS people who were into D&D, like isn't that like satanic or whatever, which kind of fuels some of the propaganda that we're not Christian, but that's another story. But it's just kind of like, well, no, it's imagination, it's a story, it's for fun. I mean, our my religion, we don't drink, we don't like drugs, partying, that kind of stuff. We're not into that. We just don't do that. But we got to have our fun somehow. So we play board games, we play D&D, and have ice cream. it's like, wow, guys, you really think that it's just laughable, quite frankly, nowadays. I mean,
I do drink, but the rest of that still sounds just like a good time to me.
Yeah. And it's just sort of, that's kind of the joke around here. It's like, well, you don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't do any of this. So it's like, Utah's the most nerdy state, or in some studies or some polls or whatever.
So it's all like Comic-Con is such a big convention.
It's like we've all been doing this. There's been like there were LARP groups down in Provo around BYU years and years ago before there was ever a convention. And now Evermore Park, it's like a big LARP theme park down there. Right? So it's like, I hear all this of, D&D leads to Satanism and it's to the occult, and I'm just like, huh? Or, reading Harry Potter, means you're gonna start worshiping Satan. I'm like, did you guys ever read The Wizard of Oz?
Right.
Or Narnia, or Tolkien, or any other fantasy from years and years ago? It's like, fantasy and wizards is not a brand new thing.
No, it's
not.
Just
because, you're playing a game where your character ostensibly is a wizard, it's like, yeah, it's made up. We're rolling dice. There's the stupid D&D stories where a guy kept attacking a gazebo because he didn't know it was a gazebo.
Mm-hmm.
It's all those funny D&D stories that are like, it's silly, it's fun, but it's harmless fun. But yeah, there's certain groups, and like you said, the media, they take this and run with it. They're like, if it bleeds, it leads. At any time there is tragedy or something, since they can sensationalize, and they've been doing it for years. I know just in the last 10, 20 years, we complain about clickbait on the internet, but the media, journalism has been doing clickbait since before clicking was even a thing. So the fact that this PI started talking to the media, and the media was just salivating over it because it involves a young kid who's off on his own. He disappears, and he's playing this new weird game that involves demons and wizards and all these things. There must be something there, and if not, well, it's going to get their parents to turn on the news and ratings. That's how this works, guys. Anyone who thinks the news is objective is lying to themselves, and this is a prime example of why and how I know this. Also, I've worked in journalism. That's just how it is.
Yes.
I have opinions about this, by the way.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, it's stupid. Yeah. It's ridiculous. It's kids having fun, but some awful little scold has to come as wrong and say, you are having fun wrong, and this is why, and you're all gonna die. And you know what? It's still happening now. Not necessarily from any kind of moral majority standpoint, but again, go on Twitter, go on social media, even among the geek culture. You've got all these geeks telling each other they're having fun wrong, and this is why. And it has nothing to do with religion, nothing to do with Satanism, just someone being grumpy and wanting to shame everybody because they're miserable. Thus, everyone else has to be miserable too. There's my rant. Only because I ran out of breath.
Yeah. Well, there'll still be opportunities to.
Oh, I know. Give me a few minutes. I'll catch my breath and I'll be back.
Yeah. No, I mean, those are the same thought. The same thoughts I've had while going down this research rabbit hole. So TLDR, because again, there's going to be a crap ton of links in the show notes, so you can read these articles and watch these YouTube videos and the like, and listen to these other podcasts that talk about the Dallas
pace yourself, because you're going to be like, you're going to want to just bring somebody's neck.
Yeah. So, but TLDR, Dallas was fine. Well, as fine as he could be.
Yeah.
Mr. Deere ended up getting a phone call from him, like a month or two after the investigation started, letting him know that yes, he was alive. He was in Louisiana, and it turned out that what happened was he went to go kill himself because he had left a suicide note.
Oh.
He tried to kill himself, failed, freaked out because his plan didn't work, and just decided to run away. And he ended up in Louisiana, like couch surfing, apparently, and didn't even realize that, people gave a crap that he was gone. And it wasn't, I guess, until like the news of his disappearance got to where he was, that he calls up this private investigator. He's like, yeah, no, I'm alive, but don't tell anybody. I want to be alone. And the private investigator is like, okay, well, sure, kid, if that's what you want. Even though the kid's 16, I don't think wouldn't think he had legal any recourse for that sort of thing. Even if he was in college, he was still 16. But
right, yeah,
whatever. I guess at some point he did get reunited with his parents, but then took off again. He had another suicide attempt that failed, took off again, and a year later in 1980, he was, I guess, back in Louisiana again, and had gotten a job at a oil field or a coal mine or something, some blue collar type job, worked for like 3 days, and then did successfully kill himself a year after all of this happened. So unfortunately, Dallas's story does not end well. But at the end of the day, Dungeons and Dragons had absolutely nothing to do with his disappearance and his subsequent suicide a year later. The kid was under immense pressure being this child genius. So he was living up to a lot of expectations. Being 16 and in college, it's got to be tough, regardless of any other expectations that might be on you. I mean, he's going to be stand out from his other classmates because, I mean, he's barely old enough to have his driver's license.
Right. Like he's
let alone do anything else that college students do. To have, kind of have the college experience. He's not even old enough to vote.
Yeah. It's just kind of like this idea that's like, oh, and I think we're of the generation that we kind of got that, and I know I felt it. Oh, you're super smart, so you're gonna go to college and you're gonna be amazing and do all these great, awesome things, and then you don't, and then it doesn't live up to your expectations, or you feel like you failed, and it's hard. I mean, even when you're an adult, like you're in college, and you're when you're older. I mean, I can't imagine being 16. I mean, I was a goofball at 16. I mean, I did good in school and all that kind of stuff, but I wouldn't have done well in college. Even though I was looking forward to it at the time, but it's like it's just the pressure that gets to these high achieving kids, and it's, I mean, I don't know. I don't know the guy. I don't know his home situation. All I'm speaking to is I've been there, that person that does really well in school, and there's all this expectation like, oh, you're gonna go do these all amazing things, you're going to go to college and have your life set out for you. No, it doesn't work that way. But when you're built up to have that expectation, and when it doesn't get there, and you don't feel like you have a way to express like, this is hard, and you don't feel like you can tell people like, I'm having a hard time, because you're supposed to have it all figured out because you're so stinking smart. Well, yeah, I get it. I get where the kid is coming from, and again, has nothing. And he probably played D&D to have an out from that. It's like, here are friends that they want to play this game with me. I enjoy it. It's something we can do together. And he maybe he has a support group for a time, and whatever reason,
probably a good way for him to make some friends, being a 16-year-old on a college campus.
I mean that's the thing about D&D is, and I've talked about this before with having DM'd at the library, and Jared's done it. Like, the program is intended for teens, but we get adults, and we get parents coming with their kids. We get and you all in Jared's group. There's some teenagers, like kids of the guys he plays with, who come, and it's like, it doesn't matter that there's this big age disparity. What matters is, hey, you're playing the cleric, can you heal me? Or the spell fly, and you can get over the thing to get the artifact or whatever it is. Or resurrection, hey, we're gonna use some of our gems to resurrect our character. It's team building, and it's like an age, your status in school, your status in anything else doesn't matter, because you're all playing a cooperative game together. And as long as no one's being a jerk about certain things, then go have fun. And I think that's just the saddest thing ever. It's like, this kid felt a lot of pressure from what was going on, and just felt like that was his only recourse, and it's horrible.
It's very sad. And unfortunately, he was not the first nor the last young person, teenager, to make headlines for unfortunately ending their own life. There was a mother named Patricia Pulling, and her son ended up committing suicide like the year after Dallas did, I think. She ended up making headlines on purpose, because she was absolutely convinced that Dungeons and Dragons was the reason her son had killed himself, even though when he died, supposedly his parents didn't even know he was playing the game.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And she ended up creating a group called BAD. Remember, like, you know, like MAD and, you know, some of those other groups, like against drunk driving. She created BAD, which was Bothered Against Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh my gosh.
It went on like this whole campaign all over the media. We're bothered about Dungeons and Dragons. And because her son had been playing this game that, according to her and her husband, they had no idea he was playing in the first place. But the last game he had played, supposedly his character had been cursed. And he was convinced that he was going to have to die. Yes.
Hey, what now?
Yeah. Because he'd been cursed, and his soul now belonged to the person who cursed him. And the only way he would be free of said curse was to die, or something like that. It's a little fuzzy. Well, because all they really have is just, like, you know, some of the stuff that he wrote down before he died.
So his character sheet, basically.
Yeah. So yeah, but she went on this whole campaign thing, and you know, there's a whole 60-minute special from 1985 that the video itself is kind of crap, but the audio is still good, so you can watch it. I'll have it linked in the show notes with her and her husband and their daughter, you know, the boy's sister, you know, talking with the 60 Minutes reporter, and then the 60 Minutes reporter talking to I want to say it's Gary Gygax, at least for some of it. And just like,
you know, when I was a kid, 60 Minutes came on after TGIF, and it was just kind of like, I don't want to get off the couch right now. And so I would watch it, and I hated doing that, because I knew every time after I watched 60 Minutes, I would just feel gross, because, you know, I just felt, and it doesn't matter what the topic was, or, you know, what was going on. I would just feel like, I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't quite understand why I was feeling this way, but now as an adult, I look back and I'm like, I felt gross because that show was so exploitative and just so manipulative of the quote unquote facts. And I hate that show. I hate it, and shows like it. It's like, you know, you see the interviewer, the journalist, just kind of sitting there looking concerned, but there's just something wrong about.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I said, the video, the image quality on this is not the best, but it's enough that you can see, you know, the reporters enough to be like, because I don't think it's Gary Gygax that they actually posed this question to. I don't remember if it was Tim Kask or one of the guys, but it was all like, you know, if you saw, because by the time they did this interview, there had been like a dozen or maybe 14 notable, you know, teenage all boys, which again, I'm sure is pure coincidence. It's just the demographic happens to be predominantly male, of teenage boys who were avid fans of playing Dungeons and Dragons, who ended up committing suicide. And this reporter is all like, you know, if you saw these statistics, wouldn't that cause you concern? And, you know, the guy from TSR was all like, well, yeah, it could be, but I'd want some scientific research done.
Yeah, I mean, this is the other thing. I mean, there has been research
like causation
done.
does, you know, correlation does not equal causation.
No,
exactly.
There has been research done about, you know, suicides and things like that, of, you know, boys and men who attempt suicide are more likely to be successful. And for whatever reason, and it and I don't want to get into that because that's not the purpose of our podcast right now, the reasons why, but that is scientific fact, and it has nothing to do with D&D or video games or anything else. It's just men and boys who attempt suicide are more likely to be successful than women or girls. It just is. And you can look up the studies that they've done on it, and it is tragic and horrible. And it has not, it likely, I'm not going to say it doesn't 100%, but it likely does not have anything to do with a game they're playing. There's probably something else going on in their life, and it is short-sighted and actually harmful to assume that it is anything as frivolous as a game that you're playing.
Right.
There's
that
a
game
lot
could have
more.
been their release to help them.
Yes.
Yeah, they could have
whatever
committed suicide a lot
frustration.
sooner if they had not played this game, for all we know.
Right, exactly. Yes.
Yeah. And honestly, and again, going back to these studies, when you have a solid group of friends, or you feel like you have a support group, you are less likely to commit suicide because you feel like you are part of a group, a family, a community, and maybe you're not getting that in your immediate family, but you get it from your group of friends and things like that. So it's like there's more going on than just, they're playing this game where there's all these evil things, because D&D by and large, it's about beating the bad guys, conquering evil, and
exactly,
and all these kinds of things. And it's like, nah, there's something more going on.
But to hear
here.
this mom just and she's not faking. It's obvious that she is personally convinced that what she's saying is the truth, but she's talking about demons and other things that I'm not going to say because we try to keep this as family friendly as possible.
I will quote
all sorts of awful things that you would equate with the the most gross, despicable people of the earth are capable of doing.
I will quote what
and I'm over here just I'm sorry what happened to her family and her son and everything, but I'm like Gary Gygax and some of these other guys from TSR where I just have to chuckle because I'm like, they're talking about, there's this other guy in the 60 Minutes thing that I don't know who he's supposed to be. He's not like a parent or anything, but he's claiming that he's talked to some parents who claim that they saw their son summon a Dungeons and Dragons demon into his room right before he killed himself.
Press X to doubt.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm, they're just talking about how it's so violent and all these other things. And I'm like, yeah, it's so violent. Let me tell them about that time that we destroyed a tub of goo.
It's like, it's
gelatinous cube.
Yes. It's
so evil.
Yes. I'll paraphrase what some of my D&D friends have said about this in the past. It's like, maybe it's not the game that your kid is playing. Maybe it's sort of your attitude about it, or what you allow him or her to do, or maybe it's that you don't take an interest in your child's, what your child is interested in. You don't have to love it. You don't have to participate in it if you don't want to, although plenty of parents do. But for the love of Pete, it's like there are bigger issues than what hobbies your kid is into. If your child is suicidal or any of this other stuff, it's like what else is going on? It's like all you're seeing is possible symptom. You don't see a cause, but you're conflating the symptom with the cause. And I'm sorry, I may sound callous and all this stuff, but because things like this, and not just D&D, but other things, our geeky kind of hobbies, it's like, I deal with depression. I mostly anxiety, but I've dealt with depression, and I've kind of
me too
felt some of those feelings before. But it's like the fact that I have friends, and even even with my husband, we do these things because I have things to look forward to, and stuff like that. That helped me get through some of the worst some of the worst episodes I've been part of. And you know, and I mean, I probably sound callous and you know, hard-hearted or whatever saying all this, but the fact that you're blaming this on what happened to your child, it's like, no, because these sort of things have helped me and helped people that I know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of offensive and narrow-minded, and frankly, well, one of the ladies you said was kind of seemed like an attention whore, or the PI or whoever that was.
Yeah,
it's you know, they're looking for attention, and the media is all too happy to give it to them.
Mm-hmm.
So all of this, you know, concern trolling, or you know, nowadays we call it, you know, the Karens coming out to, you know, I don't think you should be doing this. Well, I think you should keep your fat nose in your own business, lady. So
yeah, it's like, yeah, I totally agree. It's like, I don't want to sound like I'm being callous by talking about, you know, how I'm laughing, you know, at these people's plight, because what happened to their families, you know, all of these kids, what's happened to them is obviously horrible. I think part of it also comes from the fact that, you know, we're looking at this with a 40-year you know, lens, and we know so much more about mental health and mental illness now that we did not know at the time.
At the same time, there are things happening now that are comparative to what happened then. I mean, not like in the direct, you know, a direct one-to-one parallel, but you know, especially things like bullying on Twitter, cancel culture, just people treating each other like garbage all over the internet. And I just am kind of sitting here thinking, like, how much worse is it going to be in 20 years when we look back and think, oh, all those things you were tweeting at so-and-so, or all those accusations that you put up because somebody made a tasteless joke 10, 20 years prior, and you ruined their life because of that. Gee, what kind of consequences are we going to have because of all that crap that these people have pulled? And it infuriates me, but it also kind of shows me, you know, humans are the same no matter what decade you're talking about. And we may talk about, oh, we know so much more now, and we do, about like mental health and things like that, but so many people don't act like it, and so many people just don't even care. And it infuriates me, and at the same time, it just makes me want to kind of retreat from the world and go, you know, read a fantasy novel or play a video game or any of these number of things that you're blaming all of society's ills on, when honestly you should be looking in the mirror, because you're a piece of shit human being. And I said there was going to be naughty words, so there.
That's okay. If the words come out of Captain America's mouth, it's fine.
He can berate me for my language all the time.
Yes.
Anyway,
if Steve Rogers just said it in the MCU, it's fine.
Anyway,
so that's where we're at the early 80s. And meanwhile, Gary Gygax and the other people at TSR are, you know, shaking their heads and also watching the money roll in. Well, because of all this publicity.
This is true. Especially because kids are probably thinking, like, well, if it pisses off my parents, or you know, the more our moral betters, I think I'm gonna do it more. Because the more you try to ban something, the more demand you have for it.
Yeah.
Or the more you say, hey, you can't do this. Woo, let me. Hey.
Yeah. Let me
my middle fingers, they are a match set. Let me show you them.
Yes.
Let me I'll read off some of this some of these quotes from this article from Wired in 2008 after Gary Gygax died. When Gary Gygax said at one point, he said, somebody said they threw their copy of D&D into the fire and it screamed. Recalled Gygax. He said, "It's a game. The magic spells in it are as real as the gold. Try retiring on that stuff."
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, it was, sort of like, with Harry Potter back in the day, like J.K. Rowling's like, it's just Latin.
Yeah.
The spells is like, or Latin or French or some other languages. It's like it's not gonna work.
Yeah. But even bad publicity can be good publicity. In this case, because TSR saw sales of $16 million by 1982. Gygax says, "We couldn't print that stuff fast enough." Which by that point they were not making stuff by hand.
No,
obviously.
yeah, but at some point they were like, "And we're gonna have a professional do all this stuff for us."
Yeah.
But they wrote the scenarios and the
Right.
gameplay and the character stuff.
Yeah. But part of the publicity among all the other things, the stories, from the Dallas thing, all the campaigning by BADD and all these other things. Also speaking of 1982, a made-for-TV movie.
Oh gosh.
This was not in theaters, folks. This was made
for
Sunday night movie night on CBS. Of all the networks,
emphasis on the BS.
This was on CBS. There was a movie loosely, I say very, very loosely, based on the Dallas case called Mazes and Monsters, which we mentioned a little bit when we pulled Tom Hanks out of the hat. We pulled his name out of the hat. We realized then that we should probably do this movie. The fact that it's turning 40 next year, also appropriate.
Happy Halloween, I guess.
Yeah, and Halloween is this weekend. Although this is not scary by any way. Just the title, Mazes and Monsters, and just the little snippet description of it. Bound together by a desire to play Mazes and Monsters, Robbie and his 3 college classmates decide to move the board game into the local legendary cavern. That makes it sound like it's going to be kind of like a spooky type thing, maybe not like a slasher film, but still like Goonies or something,
You're going out into the deadly, dangerous caverns.
Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, that sort of thing. No, this is a freaking after-school special that focuses more on the romance of the one girl in this group of friends and her bound, going between one guy and the other guy. There is hardly anything scary or violent. The music, the song that they constantly use for this movie, it is so cheesy.
I know.
I was watching.
It sounds more like this should be a romantic drama.
Yes, like Jared was in the room while I was watching the first little bit of it, and he's like, "This sounds like this is either from a romantic comedy or it could be like a montage, a song over a montage, like in Up, when the couple's growing old together. Like that would be more appropriate. But this isn't for a movie about." A demon possessed game that's gonna totally kill, gonna destroy all these teenagers and turn them into devils or whatever.
Yeah, if this was supposed to be a cautionary tale, it failed.
Yeah, and again, like I said, I think I mentioned this earlier. It's like how knowing that this is loosely, it's based on a novel that is loosely based on the Dallas
news articles,
and like, what if he
which were influenced by the private eye, who we know was a complete moron. So
yeah. I mean, like he played the game and was like, "Oh, this isn't that scary at all," but I'm gonna run with this anyway because it's all I got. But yeah, so, and I mean, put aside the context and the historical whatever. This is such a poorly done movie. I mean, the writers need to apologize to everyone from the executives who greenlit this thing to the directors and the cast and even the audience who sat through it because of how badly it is written.
If this is how you spent your Sunday night in 1982, I am so sorry.
Yes, it is. It's like, I mean, I think I just kept thinking there were several years ago where Sony had this really bad, data breach, and some of their customers' information was compromised and all these things. And then the executives from Japan, like they had this press conference on stage, and they were like apologizing profusely and bowing and just like saying, we're sorry. I'm like, that's what you guys need to do. Is you need to get up on stage and bow and apologize for several hours because this movie is crap.
Yeah. So we've got there's a few supplemental characters, but who they are played by does not matter. Their names don't even matter. All you need to know is there are these our four main characters. We have Robbie Wheeling, played by Tom Hanks. This is Tom's first movie role, not even a theater movie role. It's a made-for-TV movie role, because this was Bosom Buddies. Again, going back to Bosom Buddies, had been canceled this same year in 1982.
So he's looking for work.
Yeah, so he doesn't even talk about this movie. Apparently, he does not even acknowledge that he did this. I rewatched. He was on crap. He was on what's his face? From
Jimmy Kimmel?
No, the one who was on Doctor Who.
James Corden.
James Corden. He was on James Corden 6 years ago, and did one of those where they quickly go from scene to scene to scene from different movies that an actor, covering their career. And I rewatched it just to see if maybe I got mentioned. No. Not at all.
Okay, that's good. I thought he would have brought like James Corden would have brought it up, and Tom Hanks would have given him the death stare or something.
Yeah, I was kind of expecting
talk about that.
Yeah,
it's who brought, or he walks off the stage.
Yeah, with all of my internet research, I've not been able to find anything of Tom Hanks even talking about this. So if it exists, I couldn't find it.
That must not be named.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I kept sitting there, watching this, and I'm like, he won an Academy Award. He won more than one, didn't he? I don't remember.
Oh yeah, yeah. He won back to back.
Yeah, it's you've won Oscars, and this is how you got started.
But that's not for another 20-something years, or 10 years.
It's kind of heartening, because it's if this is if Tom
everybody's got to start somewhere.
Yes, if he can start here and have this piece of garbage on his resume and then end up, winning awards and all this stuff, then when you're a US actor, at least in the UK, you can get your start in Shakespeare, or maybe if you're really needing work, Coronation Street. Yeah.
But when you're a actor in the UK, you cut your teeth in things like Shakespeare and
theater
and that sort of thing.
stuff.
In theater, in the US, if you're an American actor, you either get your start on a soap opera, a made-for-TV movie, or a cheesy horror flick.
Yep.
And in this case, Tom Hanks went with the made-for-TV movie. So,
which was also a cheesy, trying to be a horror flick, but not really.
Yeah, but not even close.
Although there were, I will say, there were a couple of funny lines. A couple, literally, just two, that I thought were notable. Is at the beginning when JJ goes into his room and his mom is just redecorated, and she's like, and he hates it because it looks awful, and. Yeah. And she's like,
I've seen sterile waiting rooms at hospitals that have more color.
Yeah, and she goes, my clients would give their eye teeth to have have me decorate the room, and he's like, your clients put their eye teeth in a glass every night, and I'm like, okay, that was legitimately funny.
Yeah.
And then the other
when
one,
I read that in the book, I was just like, oh, that's perfect.
That's good. Okay, so broken clocks and all that. And then the other line is later in the movie when Tom Hanks is wandering around New York. He's in the subway. He thinks he's the cleric, and he meets the homeless guy in the subway, and he's like,
he's like, I am Pardieu, a holy man.
And he goes, I am the king of France, and he goes,
and he bows to him like, Your
bows.
Majesty.
I'm like, okay, that part's funny too. Everything else, it's like it's all just talking, and really awkward talking. Like, this is not how anybody talks. Or a montage.
Yes.
Or they're spending 20 minutes cutting from Tom Hanks wandering around New York to the gang, driving aimlessly, and then or running around the World Trade Center.
We'll get to that. So.
Well, yeah, but it's just I'm just saying this is what the movie is. It's like they're either talking stupidly or they're wasting time running around doing nothing.
Yeah,
and I was like, this is so boring.
Yeah. So, but we need to know who these four kids are. So you've got Robbie, who is new to this college, like Grant University or something like that, because he got kicked out. He got kicked out of his old school because his grades got so bad because he was too busy playing Mazes and Monsters. And his parents,
that is probably a legitimate thing that could happen.
Yeah, and he's got his parents hate each other. His mom's an alcoholic, and his dad can't stand his mother. His mom can't seem to stand his dad either. So, and the poor guy's just stuck in the back seat. His parents are just sniping at each other, and his dad's like, "Oh, you've been drinking again." She's like, "I have to drink to get through the day." And Robbie's in the back seat, like, "Turn right here, Dad."
It's like, I want to get out of here.
This is our turn, please.
Let me open the car door and I'll try to time a roll.
Yeah. It's like, you don't need to have to drive up all the way. I'll just get out here. It's okay.
Yeah, just throw my suitcase out and I'll just catch it. Yeah.
I'm just like, no wonder. No, it's like, I know where this is going.
Yeah.
It's like, you're going to blame all the problems.
He had an older brother named Paul, apparently named after his father, Hall Jr., who 3 years ago on apparently Hall's birthday is Halloween, and they were having a birthday party for him, and Hall ran away in the middle of the night after asking Robbie for all of his money so that he could supposedly go to New York, and then they've never seen or heard from him since.
Well, after meeting his
Robbie
parents,
still feels very guilty about it.
After meeting the guy's parents,
I could see why he ran away.
Yeah, I mean,
he's never was in contact with him again. Because as much as he probably wanted to get in contact with his brother, that would probably mean getting in contact with his parents, which he probably wants to avoid.
Yes. I'm just sort of like, I'd run away too.
So, and then you have Wendy Crewson as Kate Finch, the one girl in our quartet, whose dad left and abandoned her and her mother and married apparently someone way younger, who we never see, but we see her and her mom talking about it.
This is all very tell, don't show.
Yes,
which is why this movie's so dang boring.
And we learn that Kate doesn't have a very, very good love life because she thinks that all boys are intimidated by her, and she feels like she has to act stupider than she really is.
And yet, all of the guys that we see her interact with, they're not intimidated by her, because we only see her interact with the D&D group. The M&M group, I guess we should say.
Yeah, it's Mazes and Monsters because Dungeons and Dragons is copywritten.
Yeah, whatever. So it's like, okay, so you tell us that all these guys are intimidated by you, and yet within like the first half hour of the movie, we see you dating somebody and getting along with the other two guys. It's like, I don't think your problem is as bad as you're making it out to be.
Yeah. And then you've got David Wallace as Daniel, who his parents really want him to transfer from this apparently no-name university to MIT because that's more impressive, because they really want him to go on to become this big shot computer engineer or something, and make lots and lots of money.
And he wants to design computer games, which I find hilarious because nowadays jobs in video games, you never see your family, but you make a lot of money.
Right.
But if there's other jobs, a different kind of software writing job, it's not quite as stressful, and you'll actually get to see your family. So I just think that's hilarious. They're like, we want you to get into this more prestigious school and all this stuff, and you just want to write video games or computer games. Ew. And I'm like,
you're good money at that.
I was like, you really don't know. You're not framing this properly.
Yeah. And supposedly Daniel has a reputation on campus for being a ladies' man. Yet we never see him with any other women.
No. Yeah, he's he makes it sound like he's got some hottie, sitting on his lap.
He's shacking up like every 5 minutes, but
he doesn't want to because he's so sensitive. He's such a sensitive soul, which I buy. Because that part we see, but the rest of it is just like, ladies' man, right? I mean, he for the time period, he is attractive.
Yeah, he's not my type, but
well, no, but I mean,
blonde hair, buff, tan.
Yeah. That's sort of
the Ken doll stereotype.
Yeah, if this was a different show or different, after school special, he would be the student body president or
the captain quarterback of the football team or something.
Right.
As my dad said, who he was a defensive lineman, he looks pretty enough to tackle.
Yeah. And then we have Chris Makepeace as JJ, who they've taken the Dallas thing, but then they've taken some aspects of Dallas and split them among the group.
Yep.
So we've got Robbie, who's got the mental health issues, which will come into play later.
Yep.
But then JJ is the 16-year-old genius.
Yes.
At college, who apparently really, really loves hats.
Yes. I mean, Jared kind of explained it. Or a theory, he can't even control his room, but he can control his hat. But then I watched Spoonie's review of this, and it's funny, in the Spoonie review, every time you see Spoonie, he's got a different hat on after this. And then later he's like, I ran out of hats. He's not wearing one.
JJ really loves hats, drives a scooter moped thing, and has a bird named Merlin who doesn't talk but does tell you birds don't talk.
Yeah, I liked Merlin. Merlin was
and Happy Halloween and more JJ.
Merlin was the best part of this movie.
Yeah. And then JJ his father's not in the picture either, but he's got his mom. Apparently he's this big shot interior designer, and if she's not constantly redecorating their apartments, because they have a New York fancy dancy apartment, when she's not busy redecorating their entire apartment on just flights of fancy, she's off to the latest greatest restaurant that just opened that has rave reviews, apparently, so she could probably have her picture taken and show up at page 6. Hanging with the elite jet set in New York.
I have to wonder, it's if you're so great about interior decorating and all the rich and famous want your designs, what are you doing wasting time decorating your own house? Shouldn't you be out decorating Beyonce's place or something?
Yeah.
Or whoever was Madonna, I guess. I don't know.
We never see her again after the beginning of the movie. We see the apartment again, but we don't see her again after we don't see any more of these parents except for Robbie's mom.
Yes, we see her
for the rest of this movie. Was all just establishing who these kids are and apparently how god awful their home life is, and that's why they all play mazes and monsters.
Which again, it's a better way to figure out your problems than some things I could think of. But no, it's the game. Yeah. That's what the real problem is. It's not that their parents are screwed up or screwed these kids up or anything new.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
I think your Aesop's broken.
Yeah, so Robbie and JJ meet, and Robbie sees JJ's post in like the study hall or cafeteria or whatever, looking for a fourth player because I guess their last player graduated or left or transferred or something.
They didn't want someone that would flunk out or freak out, and it's like, that sounds ominous. I want to know what that story is.
Yeah. And they talk, and JJ ends up inviting Robbie to a party he's having in his dorm later. So he shows up with a bottle of wine, apparently from 1985, even though this was made in 1982.
Well, it was 1987, but
1987.
Yes.
Anyway,
the point stands.
It's in the future.
I had to rewind that part. So like, wait a minute, I thought this was in 1982, and then
he's
later
like,
there's a calendar that says like November of 1982, and it's just like, are you a time traveler?
Yeah, because he's like 1982 or 1987, good year. And I'm like, first of all, JJ, you're 16. You're not supposed to be drinking wine anyway. This isn't Germany. Second of all, where did Robbie get a bottle of wine in between that time? He's on campus. He doesn't have a car. Where did he go get a bottle of wine?
Maybe there's an on-campus liquor store.
Maybe it's in the tunnels.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh yeah.
Hey, we make our own wine.
The frat down the road.
I imagine I imagine steamy hot. A steamy hot location is probably the worst place to be making wine. Let alone storing it. Yeah. I'm not.
I just
drink it. But yeah, I know. Yeah. It's just it's these things where it's like they obviously just did not care whether this stuff actually made sense at all.
If you've ever
a continuity person, they did not have.
There's so many just like little threads that you could just pull and just tear this movie completely apart.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're out there. Yeah, if you're out there and there's like you've been working on a screenplay and you're trying to, get it made one way or the other, and you're just not sure if it's any good or anything, watch this and you'll either you'll feel better that at least you can write better than this, or you'll feel terrible that something so crappy actually got made and put out there. Although it was obviously put out there to kind of capitalize on the fear of D&D and the Dallas story and all that, the panic and all that stuff. But still, it's like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So
they end up strong-arming Robbie into playing just one campaign with them, even though he tells them repeatedly that he doesn't play it anymore. He had to leave his old school because he played it too much.
Well, and even his mom at the beginning says, don't play that awful game, and like it, something happened the last time he played it. But
but they convinced him to play just one campaign with them. So he agrees, and they play their first game. We get introduced to their characters, and Robbie plays a cleric, a holy man named Pardue. They're all level 9.
Mm-hmm.
Which is so funny, the scene where they're making like, you're level 9, I'm level 9 too, and it's like, D&D players don't talk like that.
Yeah.
And besides, they're level 9. This character,
it's like, how many HP
now,
do you have?
Yeah. It's like your character now might be level 9, but next week when you get a new campaign, you're going to start over and be level 1.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It should be like, what class do you play?
Right. Yeah.
Are you a weapon or a spell person?
Yeah.
What are some goofy D&D stories that you? What's the dumbest thing your party has ever done?
Kill a dragon and sell the meat as jerky. What did your last DM like? Did you totally derail the plans, or what happened there?
Or you see a shiny fleck in a well, do you go down it?
Yeah. Have you ever gone down into a well in a bucket? As I raise my hand, you can't see. Because you're the only character small enough to do it.
Yeah. So yeah, the way they even talk
Such
about
a dangerous game.
the way they talk about it's like, yeah, clearly the writers had no idea what
It's like,
D&D
yeah, we
is.
killed so much when we played our campaign in D&D. We killed so many spiders. Heaven forbid. You know.
Yep.
Like,
So,
and we drank
but anyway.
their blood and we liked it.
She killed a bunch of spiders with lightning.
Yes.
Unintentionally,
Nuke it from
too.
orbit.
On accident.
Yep.
Good thing we
Like-
didn't run into the Spider Queen later. Ooh,
Yeah, really.
that would have been bad news.
That's what the NPCs are for.
Yes. Oh,
So
yeah.
anyway.
See, that's the real evil, is you let the NPCs do your dirty work. They're cannon fodder. Oh, now I feel terrible. I am the worst person ever.
Yeah. Hey, that's how we all survived at the end of the game.
Yes,
Yeah.
Unlike
Mhm.
unlike what the reporter when in the opening in the movie where he's on the air and he's all like, yeah, you
speaking
play the
of-
game to try to amass as much gold until you die. And I was like, we managed to do an entire campaign and we all lived and got to walk away with all of our riches all happy.
Yeah,
I mean,
Jared,
some of
Jared
us
was
were
Play
very
until
mad.
you
close
die.
to
You can
dying.
play until you win. And you can
Yeah.
win and still be alive at the end. Granted, I
Jared,
almost got
Jared was
crushed.
mad that
But-
none of us died.
That's what
He
the
did Tomb of
NPCs are
Horrors.
for.
Yeah, he did Tomb of Horrors for us, and none of us died. He was so mad. Well, so mad.
Well,
I
a
use
lot
it
of
air
us
quotes.
some of us were very paranoid with stuff.
That's
Well,
what the red
yes.
shirts are for.
Yes,
Yes.
we sent in the cannon fodder first.
Mhm.
We're not stupid.
Yes, we're just paranoid enough.
Yep.
Unlike
That they
these
might
guys. Yeah, unlike
These
these
guys, I'm like,
guys who.
I'm
In the-
gonna
in-
jump over the pit. No, you're not.
Yeah.
No.
Unlike these guys who, in the process of playing, because Robbie does not play just the one campaign, they end up playing lots and lots, several days a week, a couple days a week, apparently. In the
I haven't
meantime,
played
also
D&D in 3
he-
days.
we have a nice montage of he and Kate falling in love.
Yes, which is that is totally fiction. D&D in the 80s, and your girlfriend. I'm not saying it never happened, but for the time, it's probably highly unlikely. And I say this as I was dating my my husband eventually, and we played D&D, and the first gift he ever gave me was a set of dice. So I'm not scoffing at the idea. I'm just scoffing at the idea for the time.
Yeah. It's like, thank goodness I am already married.
But anyway.
So while they're playing and supposedly having fun, and Robbie and Kate are falling in love, and apparently Robbie's, he tells her all about his brother and how his brother ran away and how he still feels guilty and dreams about him sometime. And right after having that conversation, we see Robbie have a dream where he's chasing his brother, but he can't catch him.
Well, at least they
Yeah.
actually showed us that for once.
Well, yes. Instead of just telling us about it.
Yeah, I have dreams. Okay, Anakin.
Yeah.
Eat sand.
Yes. Thankfully, there's no sand in this movie.
Yeah.
There's some rice, but no sand. So we get a scene where JJ wants to play, and Daniel is like, oh, I can't do it tonight because I have an exam I got to study for. How about tomorrow? And he's like, well, I'll have to check with Kate and Robbie. So he goes to Kate's room. Robbie answers the door, and he's like,
in the shower.
Kate's in the shower, and he's like, well, can you play tomorrow? And Robbie's like, no, we've already got plans, assuming date night of some sort, probably. So JJ goes back to his room all dejected, starts talking to Merlin about, because apparently everybody else has, priorities.
Like, school and relationships
School and
things
exactly.
like that.
And he's lamenting to Merlin about it, and he's like, and he's like, do you know that no student at Grant University has ever committed suicide?
And you're like, that came out of nowhere.
Where?
Yeah.
It's like,
he's like,
okay,
maybe I should run my scooter into the side of the building. He's like, no, people would think it was just an accident.
Okay, Kruskin, what are the winning lottery numbers for next week, Wednesday?
Yeah. He's like, I want people to remember me. Like, he's like, I want my suicide to be memorable. Like, you're a 16-year-old computer genius, suppose, or whatever, 16-year-old sophomore in college. Is that not memorable enough? And especially with the funny hats.
If people don't
people are going to remember you, kid.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I mean, I hate making light of anything related to suicide just because it is so serious, and it is just something that, I mean, it no matter who you are, it hits you where you live. I mean, I feel like, but at the same time, it's like this kid is like, okay, you're just like, you just want some attention, dude. You're not gonna actually do this.
Yeah,
because we have no indication that he really is serious about this. And it's like, again,
because him saying it, even to his bird, just comes out of nowhere. So it's like, whoa, dude!
It's like, wow. it's what was the movie? There was some movie fairly recent, well, like in the last 20, 30 years, where like there's this teenage girl just ranting. I think it was played by Lindsay Lohan, but I can't remember which movie it was. And, she's ranting about something to her parents. She's just like, out of nowhere, I will kill myself. And it's like, it just comes off as overly dramatic.
It was probably Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen.
Probably, yeah.
I'd
have to look it up, but it's just one of those things like, yeah, you're being overly dramatic, and it's played off as one of those teenage, I want attention sort of thing. You're not actually going to do this. And it's the same thing with this kid here. It's like, you're not actually going to do this. You're just talking to your bird because you're mad that your friends you haven't played D&D
have lives.
Yeah, and for a while I thought, okay, is he the one that's going to have the issue because he's like addicted, quote unquote, addicted to D&D?
Yeah, because I mean, at first they're like, oh, Robbie, he had this issue at school. His mom gave him the warning. Yet it seems like JJ is the one that's like really desperate to play. To like scratch the itch.
Yeah, it's like, dude, go to a hookah bar or something. Come on.
He's 16 in college. What is he supposed to do?
It's like, and I guess the Drizzt novels hadn't come out yet at this point, so he can't even do that. Can't even read those.
So so then it comes to him, the caverns. Apparently there's these caverns that are out somewhere off campus that are supposedly off limits to everybody because they're supposedly dangerous. He's like, I'll go there. And then they'll be like, boy genius found, commit suicide in Pequot Caverns. That'll make a good headline. So he takes off. And once he gets there, he changes his mind about killing himself because he sees how cool the caverns are. And decides to do something different. So on their next game night, he purposely kills his character so the campaign's over. So he can propose a new manner of gameplay, LARPing in the caverns.
And it's so funny that he's like saying, and this is going to revolutionize the world of mazes and monsters. We're going to do it in reality. And I'm like, you mean LARPing? That's been around. Even at this point in 1982, LARPing had started in some circles. So it's like, no, this ain't anything new. But you know what? Sure, go cosplay and go act out your scenarios. That's all right. Cool.
Yeah.
Get out there. Get some fresh air. Well, I don't know how fresh the air is in the caverns, but
Yeah. So he ends up getting some costumes from the theater department and borrowing a skeleton from a friend of his in a biology lab, I guess. in exchange for dinner for 4 using his credit card because JJ has money. It's really his mom's credit card, I'm sure.
I just thought it was funny that the friend is like, I don't know, and I'm like, you probably
I'm really
shouldn't.
attached to this skeleton. I'm like, dude,
It's like you
get a life.
get a
Can you
girlfriend.
find 3 other people to take on that dinner? Because there's just going to be you and 3 skeletons.
Do you need a waifu pillow?
Yeah. It's like, oh, the internet hasn't been invented yet, really,
No.
to the point where he can
Yeah.
do those things. So they take off to do their first LARP in the caverns, and it's going fairly well. JJ has set up a few special effects for them with the skeleton, and he lays out rice on the ground to help show where they've been so that they don't get lost. But then we see
kind of snazzy the way he does it. It's like, for what you have at your disposal, sure.
Yeah, it's not bad. But it's during this adventure that we see Robbie have his first kind of psychotic episode, where he hallucinates that there is a monster in the cavern, but his character slays it, so it's okay because he destroys it.
But he is a holy man and he should not kill.
Yes, he should
Even
try
though it was a
reason
monster,
first.
Even though it was a monster, it was probably going to kill him anyway.
Yeah. He's like, I should have tried reason first and then maybe a spell before using my sword.
But I'm not injecting logic into this stupid thing.
Yeah.
It's like your spell would have
But then that night, Robbie has another dream, but this time it's not of his brother, but of this like benevolent, disembodied whatever called the Great Hall. They call themselves the Great Hall. And he can join them and level up and become, a higher being. But first he must prove himself worthy as a holy man by becoming more modest and chaste and everything. So that means breaking up with Kate.
The way they phrased it was
no more
so
nookie.
funny.
Yeah.
Gotta go take that double bed back.
Yes.
Hope you kept your receipt.
Kate had already, he'd already tried to move things along in their relationship faster, and Kate wanted anyway. He's like, "Oh, we can move in together." I'm like, I'm pretty sure most universities are not going to let a male and female student live together unless they're married.
Yeah, right, it's like you guys are living in the dorms. There's there's stuff about that. If you were off campus, maybe, but it didn't really seem like.
But
they're
obviously living in the dorms.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See,
their spaces are tiny.
Yeah. Again. Yeah. Exactly. How could you live together in there? I mean, these writers, they have no sense of reality at all. I mean, for a movie that is supposed to be, condemning imagination and creativity and all this stuff, it's like, you guys really don't have. Well, maybe that's on purpose. You guys have no creativity. You have no imagination. Because you don't think about these things when you're writing this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have no clue. You suck at this. Stop.
Yeah. So Robbie and Kate break up, which she takes it kind of hard because she's been dumped before.
I mean, and he's using the sort of archaic way of speaking, and it just sounds it's like, yeah, lady, you really should be insulted by this, because it's like
and maybe a little concerned.
Well, yes, but
yeah.
I mean, they haven't really cottoned on that there's anything wrong at this point.
Yeah,
but it's still, he's like really the way he's speaking is just strange.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but then somehow Kate she and Daniel end up having lunch and talking about how weird Robbie's acting, and then I missed like why Kate went to the caverns in the first place, but she was going looking for Daniel, so somehow she knew he was there. She gets lost, but not really, because he ends up finding her and they're just fine.
Yeah,
and they get out over. But there's like this whole like 2 or 3 minutes where she's being so dramatic, like, Daniel, I'm lost. Daniel, help me, I'm lost.
You know what it reminded me of in Titanic when they're during the sinking of the ship, and it's like Jack, Rose.
Yeah,
and it's just on and on and on. And at least in Titanic, there were like things going on, and it wasn't, there was like action. The ship is sinking and the flooding and all this stuff. And here it's just they're wandering around going, Daniel, I'm lost. Where are you? And this is one of the biggest problems with this movie is the pacing. It's like they have this story, but they only had enough for maybe like 45 minutes, an hour, and they needed to stretch it out to 2 hours. So what they did was like just padded it out with like, oh, we're gonna extend these scenes, and it's just like, okay, can you be done now, please? It's like, I am so tired of listening to you, wander around and yell for your maybe boyfriend. I don't know, but it's just,
and the whole reason
hire an editor, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, and the whole reason that they had this sequence was because Daniel had gone to the caves supposedly to cheat, to see if he could find where the treasure was buried, where JJ had put it.
Like, how do you cheat in D&D? Other than, I guess, loaded dice, maybe, but even so.
Yeah, I guess because it being JJ, he actually literally buried something in the caverns, I guess.
Maybe this, the next time they didn't want to be stuck down there for hours, so he was going to try to figure it out, so they didn't.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. No.
Again, these people
in the process of this, the Kate and Daniel decide they're going to start dating.
Which, again, that came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, 1 minute they're really concerned about their friend, the next minute they're snogging.
Yeah. Even though Kate was all like, I so didn't want to get involved with you because you're so pretty. What?
I know. It's just, I mean, if you've ever seen The Room or even seen clips of it, I mean, this is the kind of dialogue we're dealing with here. 1 minute they're talking about something. It's like, I did not hit her, Mark. I did not.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Mark.
I was not cheating. I did not. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it feels like.
It's the same level of writing talent, which is to say none.
Yeah.
But it's not even in that so bad it's kind of charming and hilarious sort of way. I guess people like The Room for its weirdness. They don't like this for the same reason.
Yeah. So now it's Halloween. Because time flies when you're in college. And once again, having a party at JJ's room. Like, does JJ not have a roommate other than Merlin? So nobody cares about. He keeps having these parties where people are the room is literally stuffed, and they keep closing the door. Like, it's got to be hot in there. It probably stinks. Like, at least keep the door open. Yeah, it's not like it's not like you're blocking out any noise for anyone else on the hall.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe they got sick of smelling bird poop.
Yeah, could be. Or Mama greased enough hands for him to get a single room.
Oh, that is true. She wanted to come decorate every other weekend.
Yeah.
Maybe. So, but yeah, so they're having a party. Kate and Daniel are kissy. And Robbie's there dressed as Hardu. It is LARPing costume, which nobody thinks twice about because it's Halloween.
Right.
But he ends up slipping out during the party, and apparently nobody notices until the next day when Daniel comes by his room and the door's unlocked and sees that Robbie's bed is kind of messed up and his wallet is very nicely laying out with some of the bills kind of folded out and some coins. drizzle, laying about right next to it. So, just so you know, he left his wallet and his money behind, at least in the traditional, American male way of carrying money, as we'll see. And he's concerned because Daniel apparently Robbie didn't show up to class. So he goes to talk to Kate and JJ about it. Kate ends up calling his mother, so we end up seeing Robbie's mom again. She's got a glass of wine in her hand, even though who knows what time of day it is. And when she's like, because they thought maybe he went home early for the like the Thanksgiving break. It's November 1st. Literally, the Halloween party was the night before. They're like, you still got weeks to go before Thanksgiving break. But still, and they realize that Robbie is truly missing. So first they go to the caverns, don't find him. So then they go to the cops. But first, they take all of their mazes, D&D, all their mazes and monsters related stuff out of the caverns. I'm presuming so that there's no evidence that they were there because they're not supposed to be there because there's like no trespassing signs and stuff. Yeah, but then when they're talking to the cops, so they're like, yeah, Robbie was really obsessed with those caverns on the outside of town. Yeah, I heard he was playing mazes and monsters with some people, but I don't know anything. Oh yeah, I used to play, but I have, used to play. I don't play anymore. They're all just like, very
clearly, mazes and monsters in this world has the stigma that D&D has, and like, oh, we're gonna get arrested because we were playing it too.
Yeah, because when the cop's talking to Daniel, and Daniel's like, do you have to, because he talks to JJ and then Kate and then Daniel. So by the time he gets to Daniel, Daniel's like, well, what do you think happened? And he's like, well, I think he was playing mazes and monsters, and one of the players got out of control and killed him. And Daniel's like, whoa, dude. And even okay, I'm like, whoa,
Captain
dude, okay.
Leapfrog.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, and there's our private eye.
At least he got that big leap in this.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe
it's based off of a book that's based off of his story, so.
Right. It's just like, okay,
because his book didn't come out till '84, so it's not based off of his book.
Yeah,
it's just based off the news articles.
Kind of being snarky about it. It's just like, okay, this guy's a loon, so we're gonna make fun of him here.
Yeah,
but be subtle about it. Well, not subtle, but they don't know
subtle
as one
can be.
There's nothing subtle about this movie.
No, not at all. So they end up finding a map that Robbie drew underneath his bed because somehow the cops didn't find that.
That was weird.
It looks like something that like Alan Lee, who does like a lot of the artwork for the Tolkien stuff, drew. I know it's like lettering. The lettering is like, dang, Robbie.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing in college? What are you doing in college? Why you should be selling? You should be publishing your own artwork.
Yeah,
selling this.
And they are absolutely clueless about what this means. The Great Hall and the Two Towers.
Which I mean,
they're like the Two Towers, like Tolkien.
Which is a logical. That's a logical place to go in the context, especially with that font. Holy cow!
Yeah.
Well, the handwriting.
Yes. And they're like, well, we should probably give this to the cops. And they're like, well, we can't give it to the cops because then they'll know it was us. So apparently they know that the cops are going to be going to the caverns, including the cop that they were talking to. So they go to the caverns where there's a bunch of cops and the reporters. So we get the scene that's from the very beginning again.
Yes. but not before a 5-minute drive out there.
Yes.
Seriously,
and I guess they leave the map on the cop's car so that he'll find it, and then they take off.
Again, nothing these kids do makes a damn bit of sense.
Yeah. And then they go to the police station after, a couple days, I guess, after they give the cop the map to see if he's got any more information. Then he's like, honestly, we got nothing, kids. Sorry. He's like, if he's in those caverns, he's dead. And then that's it. That's all the cops have for them. Is that.
Even though they really haven't talked to his parents, they didn't think, oh, maybe he went somewhere else. No, it is, he must be in the caverns because these friends of his say that he did.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. So, but it just so happens that now we get to see where Robbie is. He's wandering the streets of New York City.
Which,
in
we know how he got
daze,
there?
dirty, with his little pouch of holding on his belt loop.
And I'm like, did he walk there? Did he take a cab?
I don't know.
Because all of a sudden,
And the fact that it has been several days, at least, since he left. So it's like, where's he sleeping? What's he, is he feeding himself? That sort of thing. So he's just wandering aimlessly around the streets.
Is he hunting rabbits with that pocket knife of his? Like, what's he doing?
Yeah. And he ends up encountering these two stereotypical looking thugs, in leather and denim and bandanas,
Yeah, the
stereotypical New York gang. Whatever.
It's funny because they watched the older couple who, they look like they probably have some money on them. They just kind of watch them walk by, and then they see Robbie and like, oh yeah, we're gonna mug him, and it's like,
yeah, he makes a better target, the young kid who's probably in shape,
rather than the older couple
could potentially fight back.
Yeah.
So the one guy, so one of the thugs chases him to an alleyway.
Robbie
hallucinates. Yeah, Robbie hallucinates him as a monster. First tries to reason with him with a rock. Talisman, I guess, maybe of some sort. It's supposed to be some crystal, I don't know. And when that doesn't work, he produces a pocket knife and stabs a guy in the gut. And it's not till he leaves the alleyway, sees himself in the reflection of a window, sees the blood on the knife and on himself, that he breaks and comes back to himself long enough to use a payphone. Hey, remember those? To call Kate, collect.
Well,
the little drop, the little Chekhov's gun from Robbie's father when they drop him off, saying, if you need anything, call us collect. This is the Chekhov's gun of this movie.
Yeah, although
Robbie needs to call for help, so he calls Kate collect.
Yeah, although didn't he drop a coin in there? I thought he did, or maybe he was, I don't know. I don't care, but it's just weird.
Yeah. So he ends up calling Kate, all distraught. He's like, there's blood on my knife. I think I killed someone. I know I killed someone.
Remember, in like 10, 15 years from this, he will be getting Oscars.
Yes.
But not for this. Oh my god. Performance.
Yeah. So he calls Kate, and Kate's all like, okay, well, you're in New York City. JJ, the apartment he lives in with his mom is in New York City, so she gives him the address. He's like, go there and we'll come for you. The next day.
Which he'd been walking from,
he's already been missing for days. He's called and said he's covered in blood, and you don't get up immediately and go collect the rest of your friends and take off. They wait till it's daylight the next day.
Or you wouldn't be trying to call the authorities in New York saying, hey, I just got a phone call from my friend who is somewhere in this vicinity.
Yeah,
and he's probably drunk and lost, and he needs to be in lockdown.
You may need to go to a hospital.
Yeah, he needs some help.
Yeah. So they end up showing up at JJ's apartment building the next day, Merlin in tow. And the doorman tells him that his friend hasn't shown up, which what they called ahead to tell the doorman that someone may be coming, but they didn't bother to call the cops.
Smart.
Hospital or something.
Too
so they end
stupid
up
to live was invented for moments like this.
Yeah. So they end up going up to the apartment anyway. Everything in like the living room is covered in those painting, tarps and everything. And JJ's all like, oh, she's redecorating again. They go to his bedroom, which she has redecorated now to look like the nightclub in Casablanca.
I kind
Rick's
of
Cafe,
wonder,
which he loves.
Yeah.
when that one, that part came up, I wondered, I was like, maybe they wrote this in with the mom redecorating the room all the time because they couldn't get the same set twice, so they had to say,
Maybe.
oh, we have to give them an excuse to have a different for the room to look different.
Oh,
I
no,
know,
that-
we'll just make her
in the book.
a crazed home decorator something.
It was in the book. She's the crazed home decorator.
Oh, okay, because it was
Because-
it was so weird. It's like, why do that?
Because after Daniel stormed off with the white hospital thing, she's like, I know I promised I wouldn't do that, but I know he likes those noir movies. Maybe if I redecorate his room into that, he might not be as angry with me.
Oh my gosh.
Paraphrasing, but that's
These
kind of what it
people
was.
are messed up.
Uh-huh.
Anyway,
Yeah, so they end up sitting around JJ's Rick's Cafe themed bedroom to once again look at the map, because apparently they got the map back from the cops. Like the cops didn't figure out that they gave it to him in the first place, and then they give it back to him.
you know what? Nobody on this production.
I don't know.
gave a
I don't
shit.
know why I'm trying to think of this. I'm just making my head hurt.
Nobody gave a crap about this, about
Yeah,
anything in this
so
movie.
they're like,
so...
okay, yeah, they're like Hall, the Great Hall. Well, his brother's name was Hall. He must be trying to and he's in New York City. He must be, and his brother took off to New York City. He must be looking for his lost brother. But then they're like, the two towers, where, they're like, he's Purdue, he's a holy man, and they're like, naming off like churches and cathedrals all around New York City, and trying to figure out where he may be going. And they're like, where could he be? And then they're like, the two towers. Light bulb moment. Hello, New York City. The Twin Towers. Because they're still standing at this point, unfortunately. It's a sad reminder now.
But yeah, they
But,
go there, and honestly, it was
Yeah.
kind of fun seeing the interior of them.
I've never seen the interior, at
I've
least
never-
not from the 80s. That red carpet is something else.
Yeah, it's kind of like, holy cow, but yeah, it's like, oh
But
yeah,
Robbie's
that's
not
like,
there yet, because he's gone into a fugue state again, and and he ends up seeing a couple of more people that remind him of the thugs. So he takes off down into the subway, and then below the subway, because the Great Hall in one of his visions had told him he needed to find the tunnels below the city, or the hidden city below the city, or something. Something
strangely
pretentious like that.
Yeah.
And so he ends up in the tunnels underneath the subway, and the subway's going overhead, and it's so loud he thinks it's a dragon. That's when he meets the homeless man who tells him he's the king of France. He's like, how do you handle being here with the great dragon? He's like, you get used to it. He's like, what can you tell me about the two towers? And the homeless guy is like, yes, I do know.
like that one I can tell you.
Yes. So then we end up with another mini montage of them missing each other.
I swear
They
this
get to
one,
they get to the tower first. The one of I don't know which tower they go into. I don't know which one had the observation deck. The South Tower? I don't know.
I think, well, it was like, because on the door it said 2 World Trade Center, so it was the second one.
Probably the second one. Okay.
I have no idea, but
Yeah.
But yeah, it was
so
like
the-
just seeing that.
they get
bit, I
there,
was
go
like,
all the way up there. Yeah, get all the way to the observation deck, don't see him, go all the way back down to the ground floor,
like,
and
they
in
just,
the
they
meantime,
just
Robbie's
keep,
got there and is going up the escalator.
they keep missing him. Like, I wanted to set this to the Benny
It's
Hill
like a Scooby
music.
Doo. Yeah.
Yes, Benny Hill, Scooby Doo. It's like,
Yes.
come on, guys. And this was the part I was like screaming at the screen, hire an editor,
Yeah,
because this is where it just got ridiculous.
yeah. But then they spot him, so then they take off yelling, Robbie, Robbie, Robbie. And it's like, you know he's not in his right mind. You should be yelling, Purdue, Purdue. And he may have responded, actually. But no, they end up following him through to an outdoor observation deck. That apparently is closed to the public, but there's a door that's not locked. And there's like an alarm or something that sounds when the door gets open, but apparently nobody cares. That there's this buzz because a door that's supposed to be open has been opened.
The plot demands it. The friends have to end
Because
the quest together. So
Yes.
the guards, like nobody shows up to stop them.
Yeah. Well, guards on their coffee break.
I guess so.
So Robbie's standing there right at the edge, looking out, and they're like, stop. And he's like, I have to join the Great Hall. And they're like, you can't. It's a trap. He's like, it's not a trap. He's like, I have spells. I can fly. And I think it's JJ that's like, no, you can't. You don't have enough points. And I'm the maze,
Maze
controller, and I have
yeah.
complete authority in this game. And that using the rules of the game essentially gets Robbie out of the state he's in again, and we get Tom Hanks's other crying face, overly dramatic. JJ, why am I here? Kate, why can't I remember?
Oscar-winning actor.
Yes.
In about 15
one of the
years'
greatest
time.
actors of the modern age, folks. You gotta catch your teeth somewhere. Yeah, he'd done the comedy thing on Bosom Buddies. Now he needed to work on his dramatic chops, and this is where it started.
Get the man a director. Holy crap.
Go from that to I'm not a smart man, but I know what love is.
You know, there were times, and I'm like, I see where the Forrest Gump performance came from.
A little bit.
Yeah.
You'll hear it.
Yep.
So they end up
he may not want to talk about this movie in public, but I think Forrest kind of came from some of this.
Yeah. So they end up stopping him from jumping off the side of a building, and then we fast forward 2-3 months, something like that.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of time yet. It's awfully warm. If they go to Robbie and he's outside wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and it was November and it's been like 3 months, and they're in the New England area. I'm pretty sure it would be a lot colder in like
it should
February.
Be like January, February. Yeah. It's like, but whatever. Again, they didn't care.
Logic.
Why? Yeah, they didn't care. Why should we?
Yeah. Pay attention to your timelines, script writers. So they go to visit they go to visit Robbie, who's living living with his mom. His mom was like, oh, it's so nice for you to visit. Robbie's friends don't visit anymore. And I'm like, what friends?
It's like, these are
he didn't
his
have
friends.
any other friends.
These are his friends. Like, what are you talking about?
And she's like, I don't hold you responsible for what happened to him. Like, okay, well, thanks
Dialogue
for that,
in this is
ma'am.
just stupid.
Yeah. So they go to visit Robbie out in the backyard, and he's not Robbie anymore. He is full on Purdue. He sees his friends as their characters. He claims that he's living at this inn, and he has a self-replicating coin that he pays the innkeeper every night for his room and board, and when he wakes up in the morning, it's back in his pouch, which probably means his mom goes into his room in the middle of the night and sticks it back in his pocket to keep it going. Yeah, he's just gone. He's completely gone.
Yeah.
So, but he convinces them that there's monsters in the forest across the lake, and that as in exchange for living at the inn, he's helping to keep the monsters at bay. So he convinces them to play, or to go with him, and we get this voiceover from Kate. She's like, "We played one last time," talking about the loss of hope, and it's a very downer ending. It's a very, very downer ending.
Very much. And even though on the ride up to where Robbie is, all the friends are talking about oh, Kate's like, I'm writing my novel and it's about us, and it's like, this is an author insert, isn't it? Because it's based on this book that this woman wrote. It's like,
yes.
So are you Kate then? And then And then Daniel, he's like, oh, I'm going to MIT. I'm going to be a super computer guy. And
JJ's gone to the theater program.
Yeah, so they're doing all the things because the game is what held them back, and they couldn't do it before because reasons. And but now
Kate had wanted to be a novelist, but she's like, I haven't lived life. How can I write about life when I haven't lived it? Apparently, now that she's been through this, she can write the next great American novel.
She's lived it because now she's eschewed imagination and creativity, so now she can write the novel.
Yeah. So
moral of the story: don't write this. Don't listen to this crap. There is no moral.
It was definitely trying to ride the wave of the Satanic Panic and everything, and the
it was
press of everything surrounding Dungeons and Dragons and everything. But if this was supposed to be a cautionary tale, it's awful because all this does is warn people to
not be crappy parents.
Yeah, it's more of a cautionary tale for the parents than anything else. Like, if your parents are crap, find some friends.
Find some fun.
Find some people who get you.
Yeah, find some fun, wholesome activities to do. I mean, it's like, I can think of so many worse things to do than play D&D. And there's the joke. I mean, they make this joke about a lot of things. There's the joke of like, teach your kids to play D&D and they'll never have money for drugs.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, and the whole thing about. Oh, let's see what Jared is sending here. Oh, this is what he said. There is no Robbie, only Pardue.
Yeah.
Voice here. That's Jared's. Jared came up with that joke, but yeah, it's a mess, and it is beyond the ridiculousness of the whole Satanic Panic and everything. It is just a badly written movie, badly acted, badly directed, just bad and not even funny bad like some movies are like they're so bad it's hilarious. It's just I finished watching it and I kind of broke down in a fugue state. I was like, I can't believe I spent my time on this thing. Rachel, I know you hated Lawrence of Arabia, and I understand that, and I get it. I feel like if Spark of Madness really wanted to punish us for losing the Oscar thing, they should have made us watch Mazes and Monsters.
I would have enjoyed this. Of course, I wouldn't have watched Lawrence of Arabia, so I wouldn't have that comparison. But since I've watched both, I would so much rather watch this than Lawrence of Arabia. Thank you.
This one, I just was like, I need a palate cleanser, and I think like kind of snarking on it here on the podcast has kind of helped. But like afterward, I'm like, I was looking for YouTube videos, I was looking for something, and I was like, nothing was. I was like, oh, I feel dirty. I feel. I hate this. I hate this movie.
It's bad. It is
even
definitely
without
not
all
in
the
it.
context.
It's so bad it's good kind of way, like Clue or something, where it's like, you can pick it apart if you really wanted to, but you're so entertained that you just don't care. This is not entertaining. It is the continuity just does not exist at all. Like, the timelines don't make any sense whatsoever. It's badly acted. If you took out the D&D aspect of it, this is like a after school special about like mental illness.
Yes.
or drugs. Like they could
but-
easily substitute. Robbie could be addicted to like crack or something,
Yes. And they were
probably
trying
told
to.
just as crappy a story, actually.
Mhm.
Uh,
I
or
feel like
alcohol or something.
I feel like there was just kind of this stock, outline of here's what our after school special is. The dangers of fill in the blank, doesn't matter what it is, and we're just gonna build a story from that. And none of it makes sense. None of the people like these characters, I don't care about them. I have no interest in anything they're doing. I don't know who they are. I have no motivation to even care about them. I mean, I guess the bird is the most interesting thing because it's a talking bird. That is it.
Birds don't talk.
It's like I want to hear. I will listen to 2 hours of Merlin snarking at whoever comes in the room. I will do.
Nipping
I will
at people's
happily,
fingers.
Yeah, I will happily do that. All these other people don't give a crap. You all can go jump off a bridge for all I care.
Yeah, it's
And-
it's
and
bad, but
honestly,
it's
yeah.
definitely been fun to pick it apart, though.
Yeah.
It definitely makes it a bit more cathartic that way.
Yes. Yes, that is true. And and snarking on it and ranting about it, it has helped me. I'm like, okay, I can go do something else now. But yeah, and the only reason we really know about it, I think, is because it was Tom Hanks. It was part of the whole Satanic Panic. It's it cashed in on the media panic over D&D, and that poor kid who his problem was not D&D. There was something else going on, but they glommed onto this because the media, whenever there's a tragedy, they try to make sense of things, and they just end up making themselves look stupid. And it serves no purpose other than to demonize people and things that have nothing to do with it. And it does not, and none of this helps people who actually are suffering, who do have problems that do need to be addressed in a thoughtful, reasonable, scientific, medical way. But all they want to do is just blame dumb things like D&D or video games or the way comic book characters are drawn, or I don't know, fill in any other stupid moral panic from the 80s, the 90s, or today, because heaven knows there are moral panics.
Heck, even before that. I mean, people thought that, Elvis Presley twizzling his hips on TV was like the most, morally awful thing ever.
And if anybody out there thinks that you're enlightened, like, oh, I would never think that. Think about the last time that you saw a tweet or you saw a video freaking out about maybe the way women are portrayed in a movie, or freaking out the way about how a comic book character is drawn or a video game character is done. This kind of stuff is still happening, and I think, and I hope, actually, in 10-20 years we will look back and say, oh gosh, that was so stupid. But then there'll be something else that people are freaking out about that is just as ridiculous and just as annoying. So, people, before you get up on your moral high horse and think, oh, herp derp, look how dumb people were 40 years ago. Some of y'all are acting just as dumb now. So there. Yeah. And there is my soapbox. Going to calmly scoot it under the stand until it is needed once again. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of whether this movie is good or bad, the fact that they took a very serious situation that was already being over sensationalized for all the wrong reasons, not just Dallas, but these other kids, that they lumped them all together, and getting in like Gary Gygax's face going, what are you going to do about all these kids killing themselves who play Dungeons and Dragons? And Gary Gygax is all like,
it's like
it's not real. It's this, it's,
you know what fiction is,
it's
don't you?
not connected. It's like, y'all are just not thinking. And the fact that, somebody cashed in, tried to cash in on this is just, it's the whole thing is disgusting,
Disgusting.
and that's
Yeah.
that's a rant that I could easily go on my own. So I'm not going to. I will just leave it with you know if you want to play Dungeons and Dragons, more power to you. Have fun.
Yes, that's
We thoroughly enjoyed it. When we got to play, and hopefully in the future we'll get to play again.
Yep, we definitely want to. It's just a matter of time,
or some other RPG.
Oh yeah, I mean,
You know.
there are so many. I mean, Doctor Who has RPGs, which I think I have some
Yes.
digital copies of it, but I haven't been able to play any of it.
Yeah. So, and in all seriousness, if you find yourself struggling, there are hotlines and places you can go for help. And we, as someone who is someone who is you're never cured with mental illness. Is the thing, is you just learn to live with it. And as someone who has learned to is still learning to deal with my mental illness, both with medication, which it's not for everybody, but I found it works for me, and therapy. I would if you're struggling and you need help, whether it's chemical or with a therapist, I am not going to judge you, because I am in the same boat. No stigma here.
No,
Right.
it's no different than if you had appendicitis. You would go to the doctor and say, "Hey, I need my appendix out," and they would diagnose it. And same thing here, Rachel. I'm in the same boat as you do what you need to do, and yes, definitely speak up.
Yep.
Advocate for
And
yourself. Get the help that you need.
Yeah, and we'll put some of those links in the show notes too.
Yes, of course, absolutely, because there are constructive ways to deal with it, and I'm in the same boat. I've had to deal with some things. I've had some scary experiences, both for myself and people I've known, and there are ways to help, and there are ways to deal with it. And like you said, it never fully ever goes away, but you can. There are ways to manage. Yes.
Yep.
So, and definitely reach out. Have a support, whether it's family, friends, anything like that. Jared just handed me this. If you can't make neurotransmitters, store-bought is fine.
Yeah.
Which I remember seeing that a friend of mine posted that, and was like, yep, that's it. So yes, there are, and we're not making light of any of the terrible situations. We're making light of people's reactions and the way that they
and Tom Hanks is acting.
Yes.
And Tom Hanks is acting in this, because holy crap. But yeah, I keep going back to Oscar-winning actor. He 12 years later. But yeah, so anyway,
back to back, he wins Best Actor back-to-back years.
Yes. So you know what? This is where he started. It can only get better from here.
Exactly.
But anyway, so yeah, take everyone.
We'll
out
ignore
there,
Cloud Atlas, and
everyone take care of yourselves, and reach out if you need help. Our virtual doors are always open, but hopefully you have some real life support structure around you as well.
Yep.
Anyway. Anyone else
didn't necessarily want to end on such a melancholy note, but better than
well, you know what?
Expected.
Here's this. It's Halloween week. Go watch Hocus Pocus. You'll feel better.
There you go.
Yes.
Hocus Pocus is a fun movie. Or it's The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. No. Look up the skeleton dance on YouTube, because that is one Alex has been watching over and over and over, and it's so cute because he goes, "Mommy, we need skeletons." and that's what he'll watch, and I don't even mind, because it's music, and it I don't mind that he plays it on a loop, because it's fun and it's cute and he has good taste. He's my kid. So skeleton dance, go watch that one.
Yep.
Anyway, and so if any of our and you can send us feedback. Tell us about your experience with D&D, or
let us know what
mazes
candy
and
you
wands.
get on Sunday.
Yes, go trick-or-treating or whatever, or what you're giving out, or any of the cute Halloween costumes you see from the kiddos coming to trick-or-treat. Let us know what's going on in your neck of the woods.
Yep.
Our email address is fiveishfangirls@gmail.com. Our website is the5ishfangirls.com, where you can find all of our links to social media, our show notes, our ways that we have to support our channel. And, holidays are coming. Hopefully you're doing your Christmas shopping early, since there's a big backlog out in California. So you can, get your presents and stuff in before Santa's supposed to be coming. And as always, we thank you for your support, whether you listen or donate money or buy from our merch shop or any of those other things. And again, we cannot express how much we appreciate just knowing you guys are all out there and enjoying what we do. So thank you all again, and stay safe out there. Stay safe this weekend with whatever festivities you're taking part in for Halloween, and just enjoy the festiveness, because it's one of my favorites. And yeah,
I had a fun size thing at M&M's earlier.
Nice.
I've been fairly good.
I haven't.
Yeah. All right. So with that, we shall sign off for this week.
This is Chrissy saying goodnight from Salt Lake City.
This is Sally from Wisconsin saying good evening.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, India. Since it is coming up on Halloween, and we were just talking about Tom Hanks, I'm David S. Pumpkins. Any questions?
You have been listening to the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. You can find more episodes and information at thefivishfangirls.com. Any and all books, movies, games, and any other forms of media mentioned are owned and operated by the respective copyright holders. No copyright infringement is intended or implied. If you wish to support the show, the easiest way is to leave us a rating and review. More ratings and reviews will make it easier for others to find the show. If you wish to support us monetarily, you can do so at patreon.com/5ishfangirlspodcast. All money goes towards fees and equipment to keep the show going. For official Five-ish Fangirls merchandise, visit redbubble.com/people/5ishfangirls. We love hearing from our listeners and encourage feedback. You can email us at fiveishfangirls@gmail.com. You can also like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/5ishfangirls. Thank you so much for listening, and may the squee be with you.